Well, there's new reaction within the past hour from the White House after the leak of an administration memo that lays out the legal arguments that give President Obama essentially the authority to kill possible terrorists whenever he wants, wherever he wants. Here's White House Press Secretary Jay Carney defending the drone strike program during today's White House briefing just about an hour ago.
The fact is that the methods that we use are designed specifically to avoid civilian casualties. I think it's fair to say that far fewer civilians lose their lives in an effort to go after senior leadership in al-Qaeda along the lines that we are discussing here, as opposed to an effort to invade a country with hundreds of thousands of troops and take cities and towns. He thinks that it is legitimate to ask questions about how we prosecute the war against al-Qaeda. It is something that he has discussed internally. It is his belief in these issues, his belief that we need to move forward with more transparency, as well as create, in his words, a legal framework around how these decisions are made.
As the White House tries for more transparency, as Carney said, on this issue, we're hearing questions about why we haven't seen more outrage from the very people who savaged similar war on terror arguments that were advanced by the Bush team. Monica Crowley is a radio talk show host. Kirsten Powers is a Daily Beast columnist. Both are Fox News contributors. Ladies, thanks for being here.
Hi, Ali.
Hi, Allison.
Hey, Kirsten, I want to start with you. You heard Jay Carney. These drones kill far fewer people than a war would, or any sort of ground invasion. Is that adequate justification for using them?
Yeah, I guess this is the I'm not as bad as Bush argument, even though Obama actually has turned out to be a lot worse when it comes to the sort of the war on terror issues. You know, the point here, and that Jay Carney isn't really addressing, is that the president is assassinating American citizens with no due process. And this is a very serious issue, and we knew this before the election, actually, before this memo came out. And one of the people that was killed was the 16-year-old son of Anwar al-Awlaki. Also killed in that strike was his 17-year-old cousin. Nobody's ever asserted that they are in any way involved in al-Qaeda or planning an attack against the United States. You know, Anwar al-Awlaki's son is from Denver. You know, the fact that the President of the United States can target him, he's sitting at, it's reported, was sitting at a fire, and a drone from the U.S. flew in and blew him to pieces. So, I mean, how is that okay?
And we don't even talk about it that much. Let's face it, Kirsten. I mean, you're sharing some information that not many Americans know. Monica, why hasn't there been more outrage from the usual suspects who, you know, didn't like any of these sorts of war on terror tools when President Bush was using them?
Very good question, Ali, and I think Kirsten might agree with me on this, that when the original Bush administration memo providing the legal framework and basis for enhanced interrogation techniques was leaked, and that was authored by a top Bush administration Justice Department official named John Yoo. When that was leaked, the left went wild. They went into complete meltdown. They accused President Bush, Vice President Cheney, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld of essentially ravaging the Constitution. They opposed EITs, they opposed rendition, black sites, those interrogations, indefinite detention, warrantless wiretapping, data mining, all of which, with the exception, as far as we know, of interrogations, the Obama administration, rather, has continued. And so now we get this memo leaked from the Obama team that shows that they've done everything Bush has done except for interrogations, and actually took it one step further to target American citizens who are suspected of engaging in terrorist activity. And yet there is nothing, with a few honest leftists, intellectuals like Kirsten, who will blow the whistle on this and say we need some intellectual consistency here. If we're going to attack President Bush for those counterterrorism policies, shouldn't President Obama be subjected to the same criticism?
And Kirsten, how do you explain that even Democratic lawmakers haven't been as outspoken about this as they were about the previous war on terror tactics that we talked about. And liberal commentators, in fact, you took one to task on a different cable network for basically having a double standard when it came to what President Bush was trying to do and what President Obama is trying to do. How do you explain their silence?
I can't. You know, I mean, they're clearly hypocrites. They clearly don't really care about human rights. They only care if it helps them politically. That's all I can say. There are a couple of people who are great on this issue. Glenn Greenwald at The Guardian, Connor Friedersdorf, I guess, is at The Atlantic. There are, you know, a couple that are very consistent on this. But for the most part, yeah, it's completely despicable. The idea that, you know, that you think George Bush is a war criminal for waterboarding 3 planners of 9/11 attacks, but you don't have a problem with the president having a kill list. Again, we knew he had a kill list before the election. This is not new information. It's just gotten worse because now we've seen that they're doing exactly what President Obama criticized Bush for, which is basically making the law fit around his already preconceived notions. And what Obama is doing is unconstitutional and it's illegal. There's no question. There is no way you can argue that you can kill an American without due process and that he's not being held accountable by the media. I mean, he has not even addressed this memo. You know, could you imagine if this was Bush?
Monica, take that up.
Right.
I mean, lots of people, we've had obviously our own legal experts on here talking about how the president is taking great liberties with the Constitution. They've gone further to say that he's actually sort of bastardizing the Constitution. But yet, this is not a topic that you're hearing. I mean, the New York Times took it up today.
Yeah, for a day. I mean, please. I mean, Abu Ghraib was on the cover of the New York Times for weeks.
Right.
You know, which it should have been. But
Kirsten is totally right when she says, can you imagine if this were President Bush? If this were Bush and he had a kill list targeting American citizens unconstitutionally, going about it in a very shadowy way where you have some defense or intelligence bureaucrat who's making sort of an arbitrary judgment about whether or not this American is engaging in terrorist activity or planning an imminent attack, it is an incredible slippery slope. And if this had been the Bush administration, these same Democrats who are quiet now would be starting impeachment proceedings on this president.
Or can you imagine if, as Robert Gibbs said when he was asked about Anwar al-Awlaki's son being killed, and he said, well, I guess he should have had a better father. Can you imagine if Ari Fleischer had said something like that? I mean, this should not, they have to get to the bottom of this and not let the administration get away with this.
Kirsten Powers, Monica Crowley, we appreciate you both talking about it. This isn't going away, and it's great to hear your thoughts on all of this.
Thank you, Ali. Pleasure.
All right, as we mentioned, the Bush administration